The Indianapolis Colts are coming off a tough loss in Denver to fall to 6-8 on the season. Playoff hopes barely still alive. They are now hosting the Tennessee Titans, who their playoff hopes were vanished a long time ago. And it's going to be an interesting Week 16 matchup for both these teams because I think there's a lot to think about going into the offseason. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan. We're going to break down this matchup for you here between the Titans and Colts. But before we do that, if you're a fan of our content, hit that subscribe button and leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think will win this game and why. Ryan, we were watching the Colts game with their father, and it's we can tell that we're definitely all related because when our football teams are not playing well and it's very frustrating, we all act kind of the same way. A lot of smacks on the armrest, a lot of yelling at the TV, and I completely understand for Colts fans on why you're thinking that way. Just such a kind of disappointing performance overall because the Broncos didn't really play that well, and the defense has been playing better leading up to this game, but probably the best defensive game I think I've seen the Colts defense play. And just not the offense performance that you were wanting to have at all. Anthony Richardson, 17 for 38, 172 yards, 2 interceptions. He had 7 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown, which is good. Jonathan Taylor had a good game, but the only thing people are going to remember is his dropping of the fumble, which it is already very stupid to begin with. Like in my opinion, when you drop the ball like that as soon as you get into the end zone, because it is kind of risky, it makes it even that much more validating just on how stupid it is when it gets overturned like that. Because to me, and I don't know, maybe I was never a cool guy in school, but I just don't think, do you look cool? Do you look like a BA, when you drop the ball like that? Because it's just too much risking. And that was such a clear pivotal moment in that game. And it stinks too because Taylor had a great game, but that was a clear momentum shift. It would have been 20-7 versus then the Broncos get the ball at 13-7. And ironically too, going back to the defense, they held them to a punt actually. Very curious on kind of what the Colts end up doing overall within this offseason on how they keep getting better offensively. Is Anthony Richardson still the guy? Do they want to keep developing him? Because there are just throws that he is missing. And speaking of sticking with your quarterback, Tennessee, they benched Will Levis, brought in Mason Rudolph. It was not Will Levis's day at all against one of the worst defenses in the league, I will say. 8 for 12, 89 yards, and 3 picks, one of which came back for a touchdown. I think a second one should have been a touchdown, but Jordan Battle did it. Jonathan Taylor as well, except then he batted it out of the back of the end zone on accident. So very unique. I kind of want to throw it over to you because this game, we'll get this game here in a second, but what do you think both of these teams should do with the quarterback position going into the offseason? Because they're both in very unique spots overall.
Yeah. I need to take a closer look at Will Levis and just what he's done this year because I'm not going to lie, I didn't really watch that Cincinnati game. Every time we looked over there, it was not close. So I need to go back and do more of an evaluation on Will Levis. My thing with Anthony Richardson, and I know this is an impatient league, it's a lot easier for me to say this about the Colts than it is for me to talk about the Patriots and Gerard Mayo because I feel like they should move on from Gerard Mayo because that's been a disaster. Anthony Richardson hasn't been a disaster, and he's shown some promise. Now, I understand the argument to want to move on from Anthony Richardson, but he's younger than I believe all the quarterbacks in this draft. When you drafted him, you knew you were drafting a very raw, very athletic quarterback who needed time to go and develop. He realistically, I think right now would still have 2 years of development left in college or 2 years of eligibility.
He's 22 as of right now. He turned 22 in May, so he'll only be 23 next season.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Drake May, who was a redshirt junior, was drafted at 20, I believe 22, this past year. And Jalen Milroe's older than that. Who are the other ones at the top of this class? Shedeur Sanders is older than that. Cam Ward is older than that. Carson Beck is older than that. Yeah. And so you have to realize what stage of development he is at. And frankly, one, you're not going to be in position to draft anybody. I think there's still enough promise there to want to keep going forward. You've already seen dramatic improvements in the accuracy. Yeah, he still air mails like 4 or 5 a game, but that's down from 10. Like that's it's already coming down. You can tell he's putting in the work. So I think the Colts, I think they need to ride it out with Richardson. I think it would probably be in their best interest to maybe go get like a Justin Fields or not Geno Smith. Who's the Jets backup right now? Not
The Jets backup?
Tyrod Taylor.
Oh yeah.
Go get a Tyrod Taylor, like someone like that, who can be a better fill-in and an easier transition from Anthony Richardson rather than to Joe Flacco. If they do decide to pull the plug on the experiment next year.
You know who potentially would be a good guy, honestly, and I know he's made a resurgence this year, but go get a guy like Jameis Winston. He's kind of been there, done that. Obviously, no one has the physical athletic traits as Anthony Richardson, but
like Cam Newton, maybe like that's the
maybe so, yeah. But like a gunslinger mentality, kind of learn from him and have him kind of go and develop. That would be interesting. Maybe not.
Yeah,
the right idea. I was like just spitballing it, but because I see I definitely see all the points that you're making, and frankly, I agree with you on a lot of them because he is so young. And you selected him 4th overall to begin with,
and you knew what you were drafting. You knew you weren't drafting this finished product. You knew this diamond was going to need a lot of polishing.
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side too, with Will Levis, it's almost like a totally different situation because 2nd round pick, so just a 4-year contract, nowhere near as much money. You knew it was kind of a risk. Not kind of a risk, but like you needed to address the position, and this guy had potential. Now you have this whole new quarterback regime coming in. This whole new coaching regime and GM regime coming in. They don't really have much allegiance to Will Levis at this point. And I think that there's been good things that you could hang your hat on about Will Levis, but he then also at the same time has a throw or 2 or 3 a game where you're just like, that was really bad. He still needs some development as well. But he doesn't have the physical tools and the ceiling level that Anthony Richardson has. Now with the Titans, though, they depending on where they end up, like if they end up in the top 2 in picks, then I think they go Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, bring in that quarterback battle, and maybe go with that guy. But if they're outside of those 2 guys, I wouldn't take really anybody else. If Jalen Milroe comes in, it's like he maybe gives you a little better legs, but he's not going to have the NFL experience or the accuracy, at least that will Levis. Well, I say accuracy in quotes. You know what I mean? Drew Aller, he's going back to college as well. Carson Beck has potential, but at the same time, he kind of reminds me of Will Levis a little bit, with his college production. So it's going to be very interesting what the Titans end up doing here. I could see maybe this being a landing spot for Sam Darnold. Maybe they go and get a Daniel Jones or Justin Fields, bring in another veteran quarterback and just have it be a quarterback battle and kind of see what happens. It's going to be very fascinating. In this game, I think what's going to be interesting is Colts both defenses have been playing well. And I know the Titans just gave up 37 to the Bengals, but I think there was a pick 6 in there. Should have been 2 pick 6s. And also the Bengals, one of the most proficient offenses in the league. They were able actually to get several turnovers from Joe Burrow today, or yesterday, I should say, 2 picks as well. So they were able to kind of stymie him a little bit. And that's what's going to be interesting is can the Titans do that to Anthony Richardson and kind of slow down this offense? And the Colts defense, they've been playing better. Are they going to be able to – but it shouldn't be too difficult, but not shoot themselves in the foot and keep putting the pressure on this Tennessee offense to try and produce something that they have struggled to do throughout a majority of the season. Colts are still playing for a lot. Playoff hopes are essentially over, but not completely out of it. The Chargers fall apart. They absolutely can still make a playoff run because the Colts have a pretty easy schedule coming into the season, coming into the end of the season. With this game, Giants next week, then they host Jacksonville. So 3 of the worst teams in the league, extremely possible for them to do, but they need a lot of help. Want to throw it over to you. who do you think is going to come out victorious in this game and why?
I think Indianapolis is. I think they're just the better team as a whole. I like some of what the Titans are going to do or are doing. I think Tony Pollard is having a really good year. This defense is playing really well. This offensive line is a work in progress that hopefully Brian Callahan can get together. But right now, I was actually fairly impressed with the Colts. I know it was like I think what was it 31-13 loss, but it was like they gave up a lot of points on offense. And they should have had at least 20 points with Jonathan Taylor drop touchdown, if not more. And so, like, I was pretty impressed with them, and that's a good Denver defense. So, all in all, I like the Colts' chances in this one. I'm going to go with the home team here.
I like it. I'm also going to go with the home team as well. I agree. I think the defense has been playing better and a much easier challenge relative to what they played last week. The Broncos didn't play entirely that well offensively in the first half. So I do think the defense is going to put a lot of pressure on whoever the quarterback is. If it is Will Levis, if they want to keep putting him out there, and they were just benching him, just like how you pull a goalie when it's just not their game. But on the flip side, though, too. I think it's going to be tough for this Tennessee defense to slow down just the overall athleticism of Anthony Richardson. I think that they are running the ball better as well, to your point. That being said, though, Titans are going to have Devondre Sweat. They're going to have Justin Simmons up front. They are hard to run against. Those are just some big boys, really big
they
boys.
They are. My one thing is I don't necessarily know that it matters with how Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor can run the ball outside the tackles. Like they're running at those edge rushers, they're running it, and making those linebackers run sideline to sideline. And so, like, yeah, they probably will try to run some up the middle, but they're gonna stretch this defense out horizontally. And I think too, if you look at what the Colts like to do, Shane Steichen's going to be running bootlegs, getting Anthony Richardson out in space, and just being a good football player. And a good athlete out there, I think is where they can find success. That's like I go back to the Patriots game. That was when the Patriots found success, was just out of structure, when Drake May was just creating. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the Colts' identity shapes up over these last couple of weeks, and then kind of leading into the 2025 offseason. So, but yeah, we both had the Colts winning this game, and I think for good reason.
Yeah. I also I want to touch on the Colts. I mean, I guess it hasn't been great, but it hasn't been a disaster for them as much as I feel like. And granted, I'm looking at it from Dad's perspective, but because our dad is a Colts fan. Like, you have some losses. So you've lost 5 of your last 7. Doesn't sound great. But those losses are to Houston, playoff team, Minnesota, very much a playoff team, potential Super Bowl contender. Buffalo, probably one of the hottest teams in the NFL at the moment. Then you beat the Jets. Then you lose to Detroit on the road, who's 12-2. And their most recent loss was only to Buffalo. Their last loss goes back to week 2. Then you win against New England on the road, and you lose to Denver in what was a really close game, just not on the final score. So it's like I don't want to be like silencing all of these critics, because there's definitely problems. But like, they're a few quarterback mistakes away from being 8-6, if not better.
Well, and they did have the quarterback kind of fiasco in that middle part of the season. Like that Vikings loss was Joe Flacco was quarterback that game, and that was a game. The whole first half, it was like each team just kept like trying to give the other one the win.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just a horrible game in general in that first half.
Yeah, and so like, while sometimes I can't understand how the Colts are even 6-8, I also like, you go look at some of these games, like they could be even better if they just fix up some of these minor errors. And I think if that defense plays plays better early on, like that was a close game to Houston to kick off the season, a close game at Green Bay where they really just couldn't stop the run in that matchup. Losing to Jacksonville in Jacksonville is a bad loss. So like, there's a lot of winnable games on their schedule where they really could have started to piece things together. So I think this Colts team is they have a lot of good pieces. I think they just need to have some continuity and some patience and start putting things together.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
But let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Tennessee Titans? Will it be the Indianapolis Colts? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.